Welcome to Side Alpha Leadership, a podcast where leaders can share their experiences and discuss what leadership means to them. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Hello and welcome to Side Alpha Leadership. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Today on the line, I have Rafael Gibson. I've known Rafi for quite a while, worked in Montgomery County together. He continues to work in Montgomery County. Currently, he's assigned to the training academy and as a battalion chief. So without me going on, Rafi, thanks for coming on the show and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave, for having me. I really appreciate. This is my first podcast, so you get to say you were the first one to have me on. I've never done this before, so I'm excited for the opportunity. As far as where I started, when I was in high school, I was actually working with a group of lifeguards over there at Fairland off of Powder Mill Road. And some of those guys were members at the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad, and they got just talking to them and having conversations throughout the day, they piqued my interest. So they convinced me to go over there. And that was around 2001, right? And I joined the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad then, and still am a member there. I currently am on the board, and I've been the chief, the deputy chief, the assistant chief. I've been on the board for a while now. I've been the president. So I've gotten a variety of really cool opportunities to learn the ins and outs of the fire department, from command stuff to managing finances, buying fire trucks. So that's really set me up really, really well for my career. I owe a lot of where I am and how I've come up to that place and the people that mentored me there, right? So it's been a lot of really great opportunities, really great people, and some really rewarding times.
And for those that are listening, Laurel, Maryland is like literally sits on the county lines of Montgomery, Howard, Anne Arundel, and I guess as you go further south, that's pretty much it. So lots of mutual aid, working with different companies in Prince George's County. I've talked about that before. Very large combination system, just like Montgomery County is a large combination career volunteer system. That area of Laurel is. I know it very well. I volunteered at Burtonsville, as most people know. When I bought my first house, I lived in Beltsville, so I ran out of Station 31, which is like literally 3 miles south of Laurel. So spent a lot of time in Laurel where we caught a lot of fire. There was a lot of fire to be there, so you got a lot of experience. So just so people understand that there's two departments in Laurel, the city of Laurel, Laurel property, Laurel Rescue Squad, and Laurel Fire Department. So let's talk a little bit about the Rescue Squad. And I know I give you a hard time all the time, but the top-notch dudes that are there, a ton of rescue work. Got major highways that are going through the Laurel area. A lot of firework, and it's funny because once you guys got your box areas, the majority of the fire that was caught in the Laurel area is now in Company 49's first two areas. So
right.
You guys gained quite a bit when you went the route from rescue to engine and rescue. So let's talk a little bit about that before we move forward, because it is a pretty interesting story.
No, it is, and it's a great piece of history there for the city of Laurel and Prince George's County, right? So the Laurel Rescue Squad was established in 1952, and that was to address the lack of ambulances and lack of EMS service in the Laurel-Beltsville area, right? For a while there was all fire companies, and ambulances were coming from far. The area has obviously developed and changed drastically, I should say, since that time. And now ambulances are 80% of the calls that those guys run. So right around 2001, 2002, the fire chief at the time, Dave Morgan, his deputy, Eric Globerman, and assistant Mark Arsenal decided that it was time for us to get into the fire department business, right? By then, at that time, I believe we had like 3 ambulances that we were running out of there and a heavy rescue squad. And in talking to the county fire department and response data and all of those things, we decided that, hey, the South Laurel area deserves better fire suppression services as well. And that's when we made a decision to go from a true rescue squad into more of a fire department or an all hazards approach, right? So that took a ton of work, a lot of political conversations, a lot of disagreements. The fire department up the street from us wasn't very happy with us, right? Because at that point they owned all of Laurel, and now we were going to take, as you stated, the better side of Laurel, right? South Laurel, which is where all the fires and all of the good calls were. So there was a lot of discussions, a lot of disagreements, a lot of people's feelings getting hurt. But at the end, I think because their intentions were true and noble, and understanding that the people of South Laurel needed fire suppression, right? When we start talking about some response times and how long it took an engine company to get to South Laurel Drive, we were looking at like 6, 7, 8 minute response times for the first two engine company to get there. So it was a pretty easy from a statistical standpoint to be able to get that going and put that engine company in service. But I attribute a lot of their vision, right? You got to have a lot of vision. You got to have a lot of time and energy to do something like that, because Laurel is also a municipality. So we had a mayor to answer to, which, by the way, the mayor was a member of the fire department. So that added a whole nother layer of interesting stuff going on there. But at the end of the day, the right thing happened, and we got into the engine company business there at the end of 2003, beginning of 2004.
And it's funny you mentioned South Laurel Drive. I literally have, my dad was just on the podcast beginning of January, and started off in Prince George's County as a volunteer in Greenbelt, and then we moved to Burtonsville. And when he was a driver, a volunteer in Greenbelt, he had talked about one of the first calls that he drove, was, they called it Pumpkin Hill back in the day. It was South Laurel Drive.
Yep.
He talked about, running fires there. He said it was always good for some good fires, but just so people understand, to get that first engine there, it was a toss up between Laurel Fire Department, Bowie, and Company 19 and Company 35 from Greenbelt. And you're talking, a good 10 minutes to get a fire engine there, from the time the 911 call came in to the time somebody got there, it could have been 15 minutes. So, Dave Morgan and the membership, the administrative membership and the operational membership of Laurel recognized what they needed. Now, full disclosure, I knew what was going on. Heck, back in 1999, 98, when my now wife was living in an apartment complex in Laurel, the same place where your chief was living, and we talked quite a bit about that. And I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to create some controversy, and it's like I grabbed my box of popcorn and just sat back and watched. But it is something that needed to happen, and it worked out. A little bumpy in the beginning, but once you got your volunteers up and running, and you've got two services to get on the road, you're running a ton of calls, and they're still running a bunch of calls out of Laurel. You got a career crew there. I don't know if the career crew is still day work or not, but career crew is getting the apparatus on the street, and the volunteers are filling in during the day, and then they're there at night getting the apparatus on the street, still running a ton of calls and a ton of fire. You just had some, less than a week ago up in the Station 6 in Savage, your sister station in Howard County, they had a good fire up in Jessup, and I think you got it wrong.
Yeah, so they're still running career guys during the day, right? And then nights and weekends, we're still in the volunteer model. Even though, as we all know, the volunteer system, at least in the DC metro area, is starting to struggle a little bit. We struggle in trying to retain people and get people and train people, as the standards continue to increase, the demand, and then just the call volume, right? You're coming to the firehouse. When I started, you're lucky if you ran 3 calls overnight. Now these guys are running 10 calls overnight, right? So that demand and that stress on the people has definitely increased. And so recruitment and retention has become a prevalent issue, I believe, in this area.
Yeah, and we're seeing it everywhere, even in Frederick, where I'm working now. I work with volunteer services, and it's difficult to get people. You get them in the door, that's the biggest thing. But then when they find out the amount of hours that it needs just to get the core classes to be counted as staffing, it's staggering for somebody that has a full-time job, maybe married and kids. And the same thing we're seeing up here in Carroll County in my volunteer house. It's the same thing. So, recruitment and retention, I've talked about it many times. It's difficult, and, trying to crack that nugget. You get people that write articles and things about volunteer recruitment and retention. This is how we do it. But the fire service is kind of a funny animal. What might work for you in the Northeast or the Southwest or in the South is different than how it works in the Mid-Atlantic area or in the Midwest, because just the demands are different on people. The call load, hands down, in the Mid-Atlantic area is just phenomenal if you want to get experience. We have people coming from all over, to run calls in Montgomery and Prince George's and, parts of Anne Arundel, Baltimore County.
Yeah.
We see a ton of calls, and it's heavy volunteer. So, that they're not feeling left out like it's, heavy career with a sprinkling of volunteers. It's a good ratio of combination. So we'll fast forward a little bit. So you did your time in Laurel. Obviously, you liked it because you stayed. You're still there 20 some years later. But in that time, you decided that you wanted to see if you could do this for a paycheck as well. So tell us a little bit about that, how you transitioned into the career side.
Yeah, it's funny because I always joke, right? Even though we bordered Montgomery County could have been a foreign country for me when I was a member of Laurel or growing up in Laurel, right? Because I went to Laurel High School, so I was pretty much raised. Originally we came from Brazil and lived in Connecticut for a little while. And then after we lived in Connecticut a little while, our final landing spot was there in Laurel where I spent my high school years and then a little bit of college after that. So, so in 2000, once I got into the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad, I was hooked, right? The fire department grabbed me and I was 100% into the fire department. I loved it. I love running the calls. I love the adrenaline rush, right? Everything that most of us experience, right? I was just joking the other day, Chief Blake and I, you know Chief Blake from Montgomery County, he's our recruitment officer. We were having lunch and his daughter had just finished taking EMT and she ran her first call. And we were joking about, like, do you remember your first ambulance call when you got in and how excited you were about running some stomach pains or something, right? And we laughed about it because now we're like ambulances, man, So your perspective changes, but it's just it was really, really funny to reminisce and talk about how the fire department sucks you in so fast, right? So I was hooked. So in 2004, I was extremely lucky. I applied with just a few fire departments and got picked up right away by Montgomery County, right? So I was in RC 24. We started in December of 2004. So I'm now in my 20th year with Montgomery County, believe it or not. Right. So when I first came out of recruit school there in the early 2005 was just when Chief Carr was taking over, right? So technically, when I first got hired, we still had Amiyagi, Director Amiyagi.
We didn't even have a fire chief at the time. It was the director.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we didn't have a fire chief yet, right? And as we were about to graduate, Chief Carr became our first fire chief. So he came and spoke to us. That could be my claim to fame, right? We were the first recruit class that he came and spoke to as the official fire chief. So that was kind of neat, right? I remember having that conversation with him at the old cafeteria of the old training academy, sitting on a couch, very casual. It's one of those core memories. So after that, I got to go to work at Station 25 with old Captain Buckley there for a little bit, right? The Leisure World Station. I got to spend my rookie time there. And then by happenstance, as I was leaving Station 25, a recruit class friend of mine, Chase Owens, was at Fire Station 16 on B shift. And he was like, hey, man, we have a spot down here. I think you would really like the 1st Battalion and the pace down here. And once you come over here. And at that time, this was before Fire Station 16 was cool, before that Bendy truck was there. So it's just an engine ambulance house. So I would easily got in there. Now, somebody just getting off of probation, there's not a chance you're going to 16, right? Because that's a much cooler place to go to.
Well,
now.
I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it every single time. The 1st Battalion is one of those places that you either like it or you hate it. It's not one of those, it's okay, I can tolerate it. You either like it or you hate it. And the guys that hate it, they don't stay, which is fine. We don't want you there anyway. But the guys that
Right.
love it, they even sometimes don't take the promotional exam because they're afraid if they pass, they're going to get moved. But, even when they finally get promoted and they get transferred out, they work their whole career to get back to the 1st Battalion. And to me, I look at
100%.
y'all's videos in Montgomery County where you sit and you talk to, hey, Chief Alani, tell us a little bit about the 4th Battalion. And, they do that little
Yeah, right.
video. And I always put a comment on there. I said, yeah, but it ain't the 1st. And I think Ramashadi just did his for the 5th Battalion. So I watched that. Same thing. I said, yeah,
Yes.
but it's not the 1st Battalion. So
Yeah,
it is a
quick
special
shout
place in
out.
my heart. I grew up in the 1st Battalion. I got hired and I retired in the 1st Battalion. So very happy about that.
Yeah. 100%. And a quick shout out to Tom Tarr, right? He's kind of helping out Chief Blake with recruitment stuff, and he's done some really amazing work for our department, getting us out into the social media, getting us out into those platforms. And I mean, the fact that you're bringing it up, that you're seeing that stuff, it's obviously making a pretty awesome impact. So shout out to Firefighter Tarr there. You're doing awesome stuff, man.
I do, even though I'm retired, I've been retired for 2 years. I still try to keep my finger on what's going on in Montgomery County because, like I said, I spent my entire life in Montgomery County. But
Right.
yeah, he is definitely doing some good things there, getting in the limelight. Like you said, if I'm talking about it, then obviously I'm seeing it. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, and a lot of people do give us a lot of great feedback, right? He's actually, Monday we're starting a new recruit class, and he's going to be there kind of documenting that first day. And, I'm probably giving away his secrets here, but, to try to show people what it's like to come in and be a recruit in Montgomery County and share that message and hopefully get people interested.
And for those that are listening, understand the Mid-Atlantic area right now, we are on a hiring frenzy. We just finished buttoning up our next class, which will start in February in Frederick. Total of 60 people, 2 recruit classes that are going to be going simultaneously. Montgomery County's getting ready to start, and they're going to be starting to hire. You're hiring now, I believe. And
so we are scheduled. Yeah, we are scheduled to have classes until 2027, back to back to back, nonstop, right? Barging any crazy financial crisis, we are having back to back to back to back classes until 2027.
Yeah, and so for the people that are listening out there, if you want to get hired, in a pretty busy system in the Mid-Atlantic area, the only person stopping you is you. Because we are hiring. If you're a medic, it's almost, as long as you're not a psychopath for the most part. If you're a medic and you're nationally registered, you're almost a shoe-in. We're desperate. We don't have the numbers like we used to, so we need people that that want to do this job, that are answering that calling. So anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic area, even in the Nova area, the Northern Virginia area, we're all hiring. We're all looking for people. We're competing for the same.
Well, and that's an interesting point that we just kind of hit on, right? Because we were talking about how the volunteer service was struggling. We're struggling too.
And who would have ever thought that?
Right? Yeah. So for a while there, we were getting over 2,000 applications, and now I talk to these guys and we're lucky if we get 600-700 people to apply.
Yeah, and that's the way it is in Frederick. I mean, we'll get 300 and some people that'll take the test, and then maybe 500 people that'll take the test, 300 pass, and then as you start whittling through the background checks, you start losing a few hundred here, so you end up with a list of like 150, and you got to pull 50 people off that list, and then we start whittling it down. It's amazing how a list of 500 can whittle down to 100 if you're lucky. And we're struggling. The fire service is struggling for career and volunteer. I don't know what it is. I mean, you and I, we would have cut off our left pinky to get the job right away, and now you can't get people to come and do the job. And I don't know.
Yeah. So. And then you compound that with the attrition rate, right? The amount of people that we're losing.
Yeah, you figure people like that were my age. I did 34 years. You've got a lot of dudes that are leaving Montgomery and Frederick and even in Howard County, Prince George's County, because these guys are bumping up. From the heyday of getting hired in the 80s. We're rolling out in droves, and it's hard to replace them. So I don't want to go on and make it a recruitment thing, but people that listen, if you're looking for a job, you need to apply. The only thing stopping you is you and fear. So don't be scared. Come on and try to get a job. So anyway, so you came in through the recruit class. You made it to the 1st Battalion. So let's go from there.
Yeah, so I spend 99% of my firefighting years at Company 16. They're on B shift. we prided ourselves in trying to be the best, and I think it translated even today, right? The folks that came way after me have continued that tradition, and I still think that's one of the better shifts in Montgomery County to date. So I just happen to have a lot of very good guys around me, right? Chase Owens and Steve Dotson and TJ Carlin and all those guys, which are top-notch dudes still, right, in Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. And we built a really great shift. We were all relatively new at the service at the time, right? So we were all really young. We were all in our early 20s when we were there. So we spent a lot of time outside pulling hose, throwing ladders, thinking of different ways of doing things. And it also helped that we had some dudes around us that were very hungry too. So it made it really, really fun coming to work because, a 2-to-1, we would run a 2-and-1 for an order of food on University Boulevard, and people are, acting like the whole building's on fire, and that we're running hand lines like the building's on fire and laughing afterwards about how, oh, I beat you to the front door. And some people think that stuff is silly, right? But what we were doing, even though we were trying to be silly, is we built a lot of competency, right? A lot of tactical competency came out of that. So when the stuff was on fire, even though we were still trying to be aggressive, right? We all knew exactly what we were getting with our surrounding companies. We got to know each other a lot better. There was a lot of joking around happening, and it was just fun. It was just
there's strong camaraderie in the 1st Battalion and strong competition. We prided ourselves in the 1st to do it right the first time and to be aggressive and to do our job. And I joke with people. I said, fire service is the only place where somebody else doesn't mind doing your work. You're a little slow getting to the front door. We're going to meet you there. There were times I remember, getting there on the engine company and the second due engine company's waiting at the hydrant for you. They didn't take your spot, but they made it known that they beat you there. And, hey, we're waiting at the hydrant for you when you lay out type of deal, over the radio. So a lot of competition. And even with our brothers from Prince George's County, running with 34 and 44, 10 and 41 and 31, there was a lot of competition running that line. So, it was all good natured. We didn't have fist fights in the front yard, but you knew that when 911 was called in a specific area, you were getting firemen that were coming quickly and ready to do the job. So the people that live in the 1st Battalion, I'll say it, had the best fire service coming to them, hands down. Now, people can argue with me and say, well, what about the 4th and all that? No, 1st Battalion worth that. Sorry.
Yeah, you said it. You said it. So at the end of my stay there at 16, man, this is where it kind of got weird for me, right? Because I decided to go into the paramedic program, which was a complete right turn, way out of the, people were like, what are you doing? Because I was committed to being a fireman and being a good fireman and training and, and honestly, I got bored, right? I got bored. And I wanted to just expend myself. I wanted to be able to do more, be able to see more, be able to learn more. And I got into the paramedic program in Montgomery County and became a CRT, right? So I became a CRT. That was back when we were still doing nights and weekends classes at the training academy. So Captain Ruff was like our lead instructor. And actually, Steve Dotson and I took it. I'm not going to even get into that. But at the end there, he kind of got discouraged and went back to 16. But I finished up, became a paramedic. And then once I became a paramedic, finished all my stuff, right? I went to Station 12 for about 3 months, which right back to the 1st Battalion, right? So right back to the 1st Battalion. I went to Station 12 for about 3 months. And then some of the guys that were working around us at the time, right? Mike Barber was one of our float lieutenants on B shift. And he had just gotten promoted to captain and gone to Burtonsville. And then Noel Hall and Chase Fabrizio were at Burtonsville. And those guys called me up and said, hey, man, we got an opening for a firefighter medic. Why don't you come over here to Burtonsville? And man, before he even said, "Hey, do you wanna?" I said, "Yeah, I'm coming."
Absolutely.
Because at that time I was right back to an engine ambulance house, and I really wanted to expand myself. Like I said, right, I wanted to learn. I wanted to be on a truck. I wanted to be on a rescue squad. And hey, there's no better place in the 1st Battalion that's going to scratch every single itch that you have than Burtonsville.
That's right. Super house.
Because they have
Right.
everything. So I jumped right on that opportunity, got over there, and man, those were probably second. I would say between 16B and being at 15 on A shift with those guys, probably the best times of my career so far. We had a lot of fun. We went to a lot of fire. We did a lot of fun training, right? That's when I got into more of the rope rescue stuff because, Chase is he's just surgical with that stuff.
Right.
So we were able to learn a lot and rappel off the roof of the firehouse and just have a ton of fun. Over there it was different, right? I was to 16, you had about 10 seconds to make a decision and you went from first dude to last. At 15, you could make a wrong turn and still be first dude, right? So that was, it was a little bit of a difference in the pace as far as the margin of error was a little bit wider, but man, 15 was an amazing time in my career.
So you moved through the ranks, through lieutenant and to captain. You're currently sitting as a battalion chief, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I want to pick your brain. What made you decide? I know everybody, if they want to be a captain, they want their own shift. But what made you decide to take the leap into management? As a battalion chief.
Yeah, honestly, it was my Laurel experience, right? Just being able to make a decision from higher level, being able to push the organization forward, being able to have an impact in a broader scale, and be able to just affect change, right? We all think we have good ideas, but I feel like I have some really good ideas that I could implement at that level. And even in the position that I'm at the training academy, right, I'm able to put those thoughts, those ideas, and leverage my friendship with all these amazing people that I've had the opportunity to work with in my career, and be able to push the organization forward, right?
So when you got promoted to battalion chief, and you refresh my memory, I think you got promoted after I retired.
Yeah, so it was weird, right? So I was at Franz. I was at Station 21. I got promoted to captain. I floated around for a little bit. Then there was an opportunity to go over there to Kensington, right, to Station 21. And I spent a couple of months at 21, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, Chief Carpenter, him and I are friends, right? We work well together. Another superstar of our department.
Another Kentland guy, by the way.
Another Kentland guy, another PG guy, right? You start tying the dots here. The dots start connecting.
You mentioned Chase Fabrizio, another Kentland guy. So
right. Berwyn Heights, Kentland,
right.
Another PG guy, right? So he asked me to come up and help him managing our COVID cases, right? Our personnel. So I took a detail to Franz to help manage all of the people that were off the floor because of COVID, which was a daunting task, right? I had to spend a lot of time away from my family. At one point, we had close to 300 people off the floor, which is an entire shift for us, much. Right? So imagine a whole shift being off the floor because of COVID. So I went over there and helped him out, and that was just about the time that Chief Doyle got his job. And I'm going to butcher this. I don't know if it's our Alexandria or Arlington.
I want to say it's Alexandria.
Right. It's over there in Virginia. Right. So he got his job to be the assistant chief over there. So he left. And when right in the beginning of 2022 or 3, I'm not 2022, because I've been a battalion chief for over 2 years now. So I got bumped up, right? They were like, hey, man, we're going to take you out of Franz. We're going to put you in Battalion 4 on A shift. And then within a month or two, I got promoted to battalion chief. It was March of 2022.
So literally, I left in December 1st of 21. So promoted basically right after I left. So once you got promoted, did you get to do time in the field, or did you go right to the academy?
No, so I spent about 6 months in Battalion 4, right? Well, I say time, that's like a blip. right? So I got to spend a little bit of time in Battalion 4. And then Chief Kelvin Thomas, which was the person that was in my position before me, was retiring that summer. And I had some decisions to make, right? At that point, I had spent 18 years in operations. I really did. I had very little time in a administrative position. I didn't really understand fully how the department works, what happens behind the curtain, right? And I was very interested in that. So the opportunity came up. Some people encouraged me to put in for the training academy, and I jumped on that opportunity right away.
Yeah, I had been toying around with Kelvin as well. I knew he was rolling out, and I told him, I said, look, if you want to spend your last year in operations in the 1st Battalion, he's another 1st Battalion guy. I said, I would switch with you. I'd do that for you. So you could finish off. And we hemmed and hawed about it. And he said, no, I think I'm going to finish out where I am. But Kelvin's super square away dude from the 1st Battalion, and good
Yeah,
good
he
guy.
left a really good he left a really good platform for us to pick up and push forward, right? Like he did an amazing job up there. He created a lot of, we can talk about our command competencies program and some of the video messaging outlets that we've created. And that was all, his work. And we're just picking it up and trying to make it better and try to grow what he and before him, Chief Bartlett created, right? I'm only the 3rd person to be the battalion chief assigned to the training academy.
Yeah, I loved working hand in hand with Kelvin doing the command stuff, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I want to talk about some of the stuff that you're doing now at the training academy. And like I said, I'm following along and seeing what's going on. I still talk with Sam probably about at least a couple times a week. You have taken your COLA, your officers training. Your company officers training program. And I talk a lot about company officer training on the show because there are just times that I don't feel that we are doing the best for our line officers of teaching them to actually do the job. A lot of it ends up being on the job training. So I remember when the COLA class was developed and you sat through for 5 days, and how do you cram how to be a company officer in 5 days with the amount of information that you've got to give. It's, just scratching the surface, and then you kind of set them free, and you hope that you had good mentors or a good support system that you can talk to, a good shift that you can kind of, that shift can take you under their wing and help you. But you've kind of evolved this officers training program. So let's touch a little bit about that and how it came to be.
Yeah, so that started right. So I never got any kind of officer training. So from the moment I was a firefighter to a master to a lieutenant to a captain, right? We do a good job when you get to the chief officer level, right? Chief Kerrigan and Chief Grinder do a good job of running that bump up program, which they dump a ton of information on you really, really fast. And but it gives us at least some sort of training and some sort of an idea of what to expect and who to call, and it was really great. But I had never myself have gotten any. I just been very fortunate that I surrounded myself with really good people that taught me the ropes in the station, right? So from a department standpoint, we weren't doing very much. It was more up to the companies and the officers and the people that you were working with. And God forbid you worked in a less than stellar place, you were getting nothing. And then next thing you know, you're riding a front seat somewhere. And we were literally throwing these dudes into a piranha tank, right? So when I got to a training academy, I identified some things, some projects that I wanted to work on. And I gave myself some deadlines, right? I wanted deliverables. I talked a lot about the staff up there, like, hey, I want some deliverables at the end of the year. I want to be able to go, we accomplished A, B, C, D, and E. Because it's really easy to get just caught up on the daily, bogged down, right? That training academy is extremely busy. I don't think people fully grasp how much stuff is happening there on a day-to-day basis. So it's really easy to get caught up on just a day-to-day hustle and not think about some improvements or some different projects. And sometimes other forces and other things get in the way as well, right? So I sat down, we identified a bunch of things, COLA being one of them. and we set some deliverables. And something that I've learned early on, man, is you can't do it all yourself, right? You have to be able to leverage some relationships, and I'm learning that relationships really are everything when you get to here, because I've been very fortunate to have some really great relationships with some really great people that were shared my vision, and I was able to give them that vision, discuss with them like, hey, this is the way that we should go. Some of them even changed the way that we were going to go, and they made it even better. And now we've created, and Chief Goldstein at the time bought into the program and said, hey, yeah, you guys can run this 2-week COLA class. So we went from no COLA class since probably I don't even know when was the last time we ran a COLA class, right? Probably, I can't remember in the last 5 years before 2023 where we had run a COLA class. And he gave us the opportunity to run a 2-week everyday COLA class, and to set up the curriculum. And he gave us he trusted in us enough to be able to go, hey, you guys are going to put a good curriculum together. Chief Sanford obviously had a lot of oversight over us. She's the assistant chief in charge of the training academy. So she trusted in us. And I think the first one, we had some bumps. We are some things that we really liked. Also, we leverage a lot of relationships with other departments, right? DC and Fairfax came up and did a conflict resolution program that was absolutely amazing, right? So we talk a lot about running calls and preparing for calls, but what happens when the senior fireman task, you show up, you're a brand new lieutenant, you're 29, 30 years old, and this 54-year-old man, which is a senior technician, comes up to you and says, no, I'm not doing that, right? How do you handle that? So we put all of that stuff, all the administrative stuff, whether it's telestaff or pay cards. We talked about teaching these folks how to deal with controversy and how to deal with difficult conversations, right? Which is a big part of being an officer, telling people bad news and trying to still get them to do a good job for you. And then we introduced some operational stuff, right? On the last recruit class, we were able to convert our command lab, which historically has been just for chief officers. We were able to get a fire truck cab. We were actually getting rid of 2 tower ladders, and we were able to get the cab of one of those tower ladders and put it into the command lab. Like we made shift into an engine company, and we were able to run people. If you follow us on social media, you saw the videos that Eric Campbell put together of our COLA class, of our candidates coming through. And we wanted to make it realistic, right? You're sitting at the lineup table. We were having a conversation about something. Hey, box. You got to get up. You got to go run, put your gear on, get inside the cab. You're going to have a role player in the cab with you, having the conversations, like the conversations that we know are so important going down the road. Like, hey, what are my directions? Looking up directions. Where's my hydrant? And it starts getting people into a routine, right? And then as they get into a routine, once they start getting on the fire truck and doing it for real, they have a frame of reference of what do I need to do? Where do I need to start? All right, I need to look up at my map book. Okay, I need to check my MDC for comments. Okay, I need to tell my driver where we're going. I need to make sure that he understands where the hydrant is. Okay, I'm calling out my hydrant. And now when I get on scene, I give my own scene report, right? So all those things are done in about a 10-minute time frame, and afterwards in front of all your peers, right? And we keep it very clean, very positive. Everybody talks about how they did, and then we also talk about some further considerations as far as tactics and operations. And so for that, I tagged Captain Brian Riley. He works down at Tacoma Park at Station 2. Captain Enrique Escalero, he's at Rockville Station 3 now. And Captain John Trowinski, right? We're kind of like the instrumental folks. There was a lot, and I shouldn't have mentioned names because I know I'm going to miss somebody and make them upset. But there was just a ton of people that put a ton of work, a ton of heart, because they know how important it is to make sure that our younger guys, the guys coming up, get that frame of reference in that training.
So with a couple of things before we go any further, explain to people what COLA means, because they're like, COLA? What the hell COLA? What is he saying?
Yeah, it's Company Officer Leadership
There you go.
Academy.
So it's cola, like Coca-Cola minus the Coca-Cola, minus the Coke.
Right.
So have you seen, and I know it's relatively new, has it paid dividends? Have you seen the officers that have come through there, riding the front seat and you know, doing what they're supposed to do, following the policies and hitting those benchmarks as they're, pulling up on the scene of incidents?
So part of this whole thing too was trying to collect some data, right? Trying to, because in 2024 data drives almost
Yep.
everything. So we created a process for these guys to give us some feedback, right? So to give us some feedback and to give us some pointers and, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what you thought was helpful. And we collected all of that information and we're putting it into data points. So from the first class, we learned a ton of what worked and what didn't work. And so our COLA program becomes fluid, right? Just because you took COLA in early 2023, the person that takes COLA in December of 2024, it may be a different program based on the feedback and based on the conversations that we're having, based on what challenges the fire department are facing at the time, right? So and we talk to the duty chiefs a lot. We talk to the duty chiefs a lot. I talk to the operations chief. I talk to the operations chief's XO. And I'm like, hey, man, what are you guys listening out there? What are the issues? What are some of the concerns? And even Chief Carpenter, which is in charge of HR, right? Hey, what do you think we should be telling these guys? Can you come in and talk to these guys so they can get an idea of what's important, documentation, or are they missing something on the scene? Are we not doing good 360s, right? Which is something else that we identified. And we also addressed that in our AST program. I know you've had Captain Wheeler on your program before, right? She was instrumental. 100% of the credit belongs to her as far as developing that program. And they hit a lot about preventing the Mayday, doing the 360, basement checks, right? All of those things that unfortunately have cost the lives of some of our comrades around the area, right? We are hitting all that stuff. We're trying to be in touch with what's going on in the DC metro area, getting constant feedback from everyone, and then adapting our COLA program so our officers are getting the most current and relevant information and training.
It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's funny as in ironic that in the NCR, the National Capital Region, you have the core of fire departments that are around the Washington metropolitan area. We are all training on the same things. I can tell you right now in Frederick, after we lost Josh, we fell through the floor and into the basement. Before that it was Nate. Same, almost identical type of fire. We developed, redid our air incident command policy, and a big driving factor was that full 360 of physically laying your eyes on all four sides of the building, finding the basement. What type of basement is it? Can you get into it? If you can't, you may have to get on your hands and knees and look in the windows of the basement just to confirm that, hey, I don't have any smoke or fire down there. It's so important that not only do we do a fantastic 360, but we identify the basement. And is there anything going on in there? That information is key to how we're going to start our operation. So the fact that you guys, you've looked at it and said, hey, we've had a couple of fire deaths in our area attributed to basement fires. We need to make sure that we're getting eyes. And we got a little complacent in Montgomery County with the 360. You do the 360, but you just we're going through the motions and, the eye opening.
Yeah, and that's where Shelley came in and systematically said, hey, these are the expectations when you're doing a 360. Look high, look low, look in the middle, right? Check the windows, check the basement, check the foundation. Is there smoke coming from the foundation, right? So all those things she hit in that training, and we were able to touch, at least half of our department when it came to that training, right? Remember, we're a 1,400 person fire department with 3 different shifts and 4 really, right? If you count day work.
Right.
And it's almost nearly impossible to touch every single person. So we try to do it in a bunch of different formats, right? We have AST, then we have COLA, and now, I'm sure you've seen our YouTube channel where we do a whole bunch of we do a bunch of different series, right? And Chief Mark Davis is the kind of the conductor of that train. And we do training for command officers. We do training for company officers. And here, like last week on Thursday, we just started a drivers series, right? We call it Wheel and a Rig, and it's conversations about drivers training, and we're going to be talking about positioning, and we're trying to hit a broad audience of 1,400 people with a broad, very complex issues. Because we all seem to think that the fire department operates in black and white, and that is a fallacy, right? We don't operate in black and white. There's so many different forces and so many different things happening, and we're expecting people to make snap decisions on limited information, which is a recipe for disaster. So we're trying to create these systems and give these folks these tools so they can just make better decisions.
Agreed. And when I tell people, I said, when all else fails, you have the policy to fall back on. If you at least follow that, you're moving in the right direction. But not all incidents are policy-driven fires, but that's your starting point. And then you move from there as you start gaining more information. As a battalion chief, you're coming in, you're trying to make decisions based on, not great information until those crews get inside and can tell you what's going on. And then you can start moving your people around. The same thing holds true for those company officers.
Yeah, sorry. And you just touched on something really, really important, right? So Chief Eric House has an amazing presentation on push-pull communications, right? And we talk about, and the officers get this now as part of our COLA program. And it's like, look, man, crappy information is going to give you crap decision-making, right? So you have to push. It's not just the chief officer to ask you for good information. If you see something and you think it's important, push that information out, right? And then if he has additional questions, he also has to pull some information, right? And then it creates that pull push. And I highly, if you're a new officer or you're working on becoming an officer, go look up push pull, right? It's something that came out of corporate, but it 100% applies to the fire ground. When you push bad information, the chief is going to pull bad information, and bad decisions are going to be made, right? And then we'll unfortunately be reading about you on some NIOSH report, right? So you got to push good information to get good decision making, and that's all around, right? If you're E3, you're the guy riding the line behind you is giving you bad information. Oh, hey, I think this fire's upstairs and the fire's really in the basement. You're going to make decisions on bad information, right? So we really need to focus on giving good information to the chief, and the chiefs need to work on pulling information, right? And the perfect example that we used is before Chief Monty Fitch retired, he ran a fire in Oney, and they had a hole on the floor, on the first floor. And the company that was there said, hey, we have a hole on the floor. And Chief Monty Fitch responded with, okay, where's the hole? How big is the hole? Does it compromise the structural integrity, right? And can we just close the door and the problem goes away, right? So the company officer pushed bad information, but the chief, seasoned, very good command officer was like, okay, well, you got to give me more. So he's trying to pull better information from him, right? So, and that's where we have these safeties and this resiliency built into the system, where if one person is not giving good information, you got to pick up on that and be able to ask the right questions, right? Ask the right questions to get good information so you can make good decisions. The other one that cracks me up is like, hey, I got a hole in my hose line, right? Okay, what does that mean? Can you still flow water? Can you still put out a fire? Is it a pintle or did your entire hose just blow? Right. Let's do better. Let's give better information.
And one of the things that I want to kind of dovetail onto that is that the too much information. We're running into some of this in Frederick, and I think it's everywhere. Is everybody gets on the radio and they just start talking. Even before they're on the scene, and they're trying to grab information that's just not important right now. The biggest thing is your 360. What I tell people, the information I want as a command officer coming down the road is, your initial on scene report. And then from there, you're doing your 360. And what I want to hear on the 360 is, what does the rear look? What does the sides look like that I can't see when I get on the scene? What's going on in the basement? Is it on fire? Is it not on fire? How do you get into that basement? and what are the occupant status? That's all I
Right.
want to know. I don't care about utilities. I don't care about, anything else other than those core things. Everything else I can take care of when I get on the scene. But we're running into these issues where you'll have, you have command officers coming down the road trying to run the incident while they're driving down the road. And I know in Montgomery, that was a big no-no. You don't do that. You wait till you get on the scene and you make your adjustments. You can make the major adjustments if you're not hearing it on the radio as you're driving down the road. But this vomit of
Yeah. No,
communication that's going on as people are coming down the road, we really have to keep the airways clear. So that first engine officer is calling the ball, whether it's water supply, rural water supply, initial on scene report, the direction that they're coming in. We need to leave the radio open for them to do their job. And then anything else that's minor, we can clean up when we get there. So that push-pull communication is key. And I know Sam has taught a lot of that. We've worked on that together. Of being able to give me the information that I need so I can start the operation. And then I can also let the next couple of companies that are coming in. And then when command is assumed, I'll pull more information from you by getting that LCAN report. And I think, when we talk about those LCAN or CAN reports, that's the information I want. I don't want your life story. I don't want you second guessing things. I want factual information so I can maneuver units to where they need to be.
yeah, and one of the a phrase that I heard, right, and I'll give Chief Jay Blake credit here. When I was a first command officer, I was just getting my feet wet there in Montgomery County. Something that he said to me, and it kind of stuck with me. It's like, hey man, when you get on the scene, you're going to have an urge to grab that radio and say you're on the scene and establish command and do all that. It's like, stop, right? Let the incident breathe for a second. Watch what's happening out front, see what's going on, let that incident breathe for a second. Once you see, kind of have a better idea of what's going on, you see people pulling lines, it gives you a second to kind of breathe, then think about what you're going to say, take a deep breath, then say it, right? Don't resist the urge of just getting there, keying up the mic and start talking a bunch of gibberish.
You got to trust your people. And when I worked in the 1st Battalion, running out of Station 12, we run a high-rise box on Lockwood Drive, which is literally, 3.5 seconds away from the firehouse. I told my officer, I said, look, when you get on the scene, give your initial on-scene report, take command. I'll already be there. I'm going to back my car into a nice place where I can see everything that's going on. I'll probably start writing the units down on my tactical worksheet. I trust you enough to run that incident for 5 minutes in the tactical command mode until I get on the radio and say, okay, unless you don't have anything else, I'll go ahead and assume command. And you're absolutely right. There should not be a rush for that incident commander to Tokyo drift into the scene and then start yelling on the radio, I'm on the scene, I'll have command, and then not actually understanding what's going on. You start asking questions where if you would just wait, 30 seconds to a minute, you'll see the hose lines being pulled in the direction that you're going. You'll be able to get that report from maybe that third new engine company that's coming into the rear. You'll be able to maybe see more than one side of the house instead of just hurrying, getting on the scene. So you got to trust your people. That's key. If you don't trust your people, then you need to fix that first. And then you can, move forward as an incident commander. Now, I want to kind of move into the incident commander stuff and some of the stuff that you and I talked about online. We hammer our officers to make sure you're getting out there, you're training with your people, you're drilling, you're doing stuff. We need you to be better. We want you to be flawless on the fire ground. But let's focus on the incident commander. Obviously, the incident commanders aren't pulling lines anymore. They're not really, well, they shouldn't be, but they're pulling ceilings and searching and all that stuff. What are we doing to make sure that our command officers are fresh and skilled and able to handle these incidents, or are we just being a bunch of hypocrites? And I know we're not, because we do have command comp. So let's talk about the command comp program that you're running in Montgomery County. I know Howard does it, DC does it, PG does it. Frederick's getting ready to start doing it. We want to make sure that our command officers are every bit as skilled and ready to go with their sets and reps in training to be command officers for when they arrive on the scene of an actual incident and how they're running that. So let's talk a little bit about the command comp program and how it's evolved in the last 2 years, because that was the last time I actually touched it in Montgomery County.
Yeah. So, as you know, the program started in 2007 as a vision of Chief Carr. right? And that was an effort that was created by our volunteers and our career personnel together in a committee setting. And then Command Comps was born from that, right? Since then, it's evolved a ton. We've changed it a lot. We've created a bunch of different things. So my first year, right, as the Command Competencies program manager or program coordinator, I had first of all, God, man, what big shoes to fill, right? Kelvin had done an amazing job with that program. I had to come in and try to do something fresh, try to do something new, something that maybe nobody's done before, right? So, for everybody out there listening, right, all of our chief officers every year are required to come to the training academy and pass an incident that lasts about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. And you have to come up and just show proficiency in running an incident, right? And that incident can be whatever we seem to be the hot topic for the year. So on top of that, they also need to accumulate 12 hours of what we call COPDI, right? Which is just professional development, right? Just something that is showing that you are doing something to continue to learn and continue to grow as a chief officer. So we require 12 hours of that per year. So on my first year, and you'll probably remember this, right? When Steve Jones was our operations chief, we started operating in command teams, right? We started being focused on, hey, when that second chief gets on the scene, we want them to get in the car to create more bandwidth for that first command officer. So whether you pass your command chart, which some people do, some people don't, but either way, you have that second person there that may catch something that you missed or can help you with the command chart, and it just becomes a team. However, what we didn't do is set the expectations of what that means. What does it mean to get in the car? What am I supposed to be doing, right? And just at that time, some of the command action guidelines, we called them checklists. A lot of people call them checklists, right? Command action guidelines for command officers had just come out. So we wanted to reinforce those command action guidelines, and we wanted to teach people what does it mean to be that second chief in the car when the first chief is not doing a very good job, right? So we created a middle-of-the-road townhouse fire, and I just did it in Burtonsville because – that's what shout out to Burtonsville.
That's what you had access to. But it's not, before you go any further, I want people to understand it's not a matter of that second chief getting in the car because that first chief isn't doing well. But there are lots of times, especially you look in the downtown Bethesda area, downtown Silver Spring, you got high-rise fires and you've got a lot of things happening right away. And you're only capable of handling so much. So that second chief in the car, whether it's a career or volunteer, is taking a load off of the shoulders of that incident commander, whether it's like, hey, here's my chart, start documenting on my tactical worksheet, or hey, take the radio and start directing these units while I finish filling out this tactical worksheet. So it's those checks and balances. It's like a pilot and a co-pilot. It's like, hey, everything's going good. A lot of times that second chief will come in and just kind of sit there. And I can't tell you the conversations that I had in the car with some of the other chiefs when things were moving smoothly, but there are times where things are hectic. You're making rescues. The fire's got a hold of the building more than the firemen have a hold of the fire. It's there for that command team to have that second set of eyes to bounce ideas off of. And to me, when I started as a battalion chief, having people like John Gallo coming in who had a ton of experience, Mark Davis, getting in the car with me and, just having that calm demeanor, like, yeah, I've done this before. I've got the t-shirt and everything. T-shirt already has holes in it. So we're going to get through this and we're going to use it as a learning experience. So people understand what that command team is, but go ahead. I know I cut you off, but go ahead.
No. But we talk a lot about resilience and slack and just creating fail-softs within our system, right? So when we talk about the fifth due engine on a box alarm being there to fix any water supply problems, right? That is something that we've added mixed, and it's like a risk management tool, right? We created slack, we created resilience within our policies and procedure. So we're expecting something to not go well. And when it doesn't, there's already stuff built into the system to pick up that slack and build that resilience. And it's the same thing with the second chief, right? I'm not there because I want to babysit you, or I think that one person can't have command. We're just creating resilience and slack in the system. So when, God forbid, a Mayday happens, there's already somebody else in the car with you to strategize and start talking stuff through, right? Or when you have an 8750 Georgia Avenue fire where you got a high rise, a multi-story high rise with people trapped and smoke on every floor, and it's early in the morning and every single person is in the building, and now you got an entire city block worth of people sitting outside. To ask one person to manage that is just setting the system up for failure.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the combination system. I ran so many fires with Mike Ryman in the car as chief at Burtonsville, or Jamie Heflin at the time was the chief at Kensington. They were getting on the scene, and we ran those fires together.
Yes.
Running with the beauty of this command comp, which we'll touch here in a second, was that career and volunteer are trained identically, and the peer evaluation is done by career and volunteer together. So when I run a call, if I'm working overtime in the 5th Battalion and I run a box over in Laytonsville, and when Laytonsville's chief gets in the car with me, he's trained the same way I am. It is the same thing, running in Kensington. That Kensington chief, they're trained the same way I am. So there's a huge benefit to this command comp and how we have that buy-in for career and volunteer, how it works together.
Yeah, we set the same expectations for everybody, right? The basement, the foundation of the organization, everybody has gotten the same training. Everybody knows the expectations, and everybody understands what their job is when they get on scene, whether you're the first or the second chief or the third chief, right? Everybody understands what needs to be done. Everybody's on the same sheet of music, and 99.9% of the time we're operating flawlessly, right? But to answer your question, right, so for our chief officers, on top of the command comp process, there's that 12 hours. And the training academy, per policy, is required to put out a ton of different continuing education, professional development courses. Something that I'm working on right now, and I hope to be able to kick this off for February, is our first chief officer seminar, right? And right now, I was lucky enough to get Chief Rudersill from the Baltimore City Fire Department, and I think it's Captain now, Josh Burchick from Howard. They were both involved in a line of duty death, right? Josh being involved with Nate Flynn. He was the officer on the engine company on the RIT. So he talks a lot about, and I'm sure a lot of folks have seen this presentation, which is absolutely phenomenal. Right. He talks about fitness. He talks about training. He talks about the line of duty and the impact and the mental health piece and all kinds of resiliency things that we need to think about and we need to implement when these things happen. And Chief Rudersill is going to come talk about managing a Mayday. He was in charge of just this last line of duty death in Baltimore City. So our chief officers are going to get to experience that and learn from that and hear from the horse's mouth about what it's like to go through something so catastrophic. And then on top of that, I hit on all the videos that we put out, right? If you search on us on YouTube, anytime we have a major incident, right, we're getting ready to do one on that church fire we had in Bethesda where we had a Mayday, right? Fortunately, it resolved itself. But, the chief officers are going to come in and talk about their experience and what went well and what didn't go well. And so if you're a new chief officer or you're a seasoned chief officer, you're hearing the story from the horse's mouth and you're learning the lessons that they learned, and you don't have to go out there and learn them on your own, right? Because I've already heard this story before. Hey, I'm hearing some stuff on the radio before. Oh, I remember this from when Chief Polikoff ran this call on Lockwood Drive. I need to make sure I'm pulling my people out, or I need to change my tactics. I need to be alert. So we're doing a ton of stuff monthly, right? We try to do 2 episodes per month. So 24 episodes a year on our YouTube channel. We try to throw some chief officer seminars in there. In the summertime, MIFRE holds their Maryland Chiefs Fire Seminar there right here in Montgomery County at the Shady Grove Universities. We support them, right? We send people there to record and to participate. A lot of our chief officers go to that just because it's local and you can get 12 hours just right there, right? Because that's 2 days, 2 full days of lectures there. And then on top of that, I was extremely proud and happy to see that actually a lot of our chief officers go elsewhere, right? Myself and Chief Blake are actually going to Virginia here in, I think it's May, for a command and leadership conference, right? So all of us, last year I went to the MIFRE put together that National Fire Command, and I'm going to forget the second part of it, the command and something, right? But it's a whole week in Annapolis, and they had people come from all over the country. Chief Griffin from Charleston came and talked. We had Dave Statter spoke. There were so many different really great things that happened. So the opportunities are there in our area, I can tell you, and I'm happy to see that a lot of our chief officers do take advantage of that. So it's not just Montgomery County, because sometimes, hey man, if I want to hear something different from somebody else and get some different ideas, sometimes I do encourage people to just go outside, right? Because our message, you know, our department, you know what we're trying to preach. At least I hope you do if you're engaged, right? So sometimes if it's good to go outside and go to other places and hear some of these messages, right? Chief Griffin's, I don't know if you've ever heard that, Dave. His presentation is great because he was also the engine company operator for the Super Sofa fire down in Charleston. So he's got a great presentation on that. And now he's the assistant chief in charge of, I think it's HR down there. So it's really, really great stuff that he's putting out.
So now I know that you're not a super fan of Side Alpha leadership, because you would know I already had Dave Griffin on my show. So we talked.
I know I did not know that, but I have listened to a couple.
I actually did the back during the COVID time when we had to do that Maryland's chief officer seminar. They did it online.
Yes.
He was a presenter, and I hit him up in the chat thing. I said, "Hey man, here's my email. Give me a holler." And we talked, and he came on the show. But definitely a very humble guy. Talks about his failings as the engine driver and what he felt that he failed on during that Super Sofa fire, and just a ton of insight. And the guy has really learned and puts his message out there. So
yeah, and he talks a lot about training, right? And he talks a lot about how he became an engine company driver and how his failures of not putting the time and the energy into becoming an engine driver, unfortunately, had catastrophic effects. And I think that's a powerful message for anybody in the fire service. Like, look, man, take this stuff serious. Put some energy and some effort into this, because one day you could be pumping that fire. You know,
and I think we're coming up to just over the 1 hour mark, but there's something I do want to touch on, and we talked about training. What I said towards the middle of this podcast is that we demand so much from our firefighters, from our company officers when they're riding the apparatus, and to follow the policies and do things, that they equally should be demanding the same from the command officers to make sure that we are the best when we're arriving on the scene. We're there to support their operation, to make sure that they are operating, as safe as possible in the situation that we're working on. But we're looking out for their well-being, and the only way that we can do that is to continually get better at our craft as incident commanders, just like we demand of them to be the best at their craft as company officers and as firefighters. We can't be hypocrites when it comes to upper management, senior staff, when it comes to training. Montgomery, and yes, I'm a little biased. I've spent my entire life as between volunteer and career in Montgomery. I know the programs that are happening there. And I'm proud to say that we are pushing forward like full steam ahead in 2 years that I've been with Frederick, what we've done and what we've accomplished, and then what things are on the horizon when it comes to accountability for our command officers and our training and the professional development that's going to come out of that. Right. Just to see, how we are ensuring, or we are telling our firefighters on the floor that, yes, we demand a lot from you, but you should be demanding a lot from us, and we're going to give that to you as well. So I appreciate you coming on the show and talking, about the things that you're doing in Montgomery and the things that we've learned along the way as a fire service and as a whole, and how we have moved forward, not just sitting on the couch. We're actually moving forward. with our training for line officers and our training for firefighters, as well as our training for command officers. Now, once this podcast gets out on the interwebs and people are listening to it, they're going to want to pick your brain. I know you get emails. I still get emails. People are like, how'd you get 1.5-inch hose in Montgomery County? Can I get that stuff? So I still get stuff. So if you feel comfortable, if you want to put your information out there so people can get a hold of you if they have questions, that would be fantastic, making the fire service better as a whole.
Yeah, and I encourage that, right? When I first got in my position, I went and visited all the surrounding areas, Fairfax, DC, Howard. I've gone to a bunch of different places to see stuff, and I pulled stuff from them. So I highly encourage it. And we've had a lot of people come and visit our command lab. One of the coolest ones is I had some folks from Pittsburgh come down and pick our brain because they're starting to create a command competencies program, and they wanted to see what we did, right? So yeah, I'm always open. If anybody wants to reach out, it's Rafael, right? RAFAEL .Gibson, GIBSON at MontgomeryCountyMD.gov. Anytime you want to reach out, you want to see the lab, you want to come talk about training and chief officer education, or if you have some tips for me, right? I'm always open to listening to how people do stuff where they are, because I know we can always make our program better.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll put your email information in the write-up of the show, so when people are listening, whether it's whatever podcast they're listening to or if they're going to the website, they'll be able to click right on it and get right to your information. So, Rafi, I appreciate you coming on the show. The program that you guys are running in Montgomery, that started with Chuck Bartlett, has evolved underneath the Kelvin, and you're taking it to the next level, which is the way it should be. Things should always be evolving. Is phenomenal, and it's a good blueprint for anybody out there. And believe it or not, I can tell you that it's not super expensive to set up a command comp. I take our show on the road with Capital Fire. When we do it, it only takes a couple of radios and a computer, a PowerPoint projector, and some. You don't even have to use the simulation program like SimsUshare, which is what I use. I think Montgomery's using that now. You can just put a picture of a building on fire and then make those guys put it out.
YouTube's another great tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can grab, I know the SimsUshare is putting a lot of stuff on YouTube, where you can grab those things as well. But I encourage people to definitely, ask your question. Are you demanding a lot from your company officers and your firefighters? What are you doing for your command officers? Are you ensuring that those people are the best when they're running calls? And if you have to scratch your head, or if you have to pause for a moment, the answer is no, and that you should be out there figuring out ways to improve yourselves. And again, if you want to not reinvent the wheel, send Rafael an email, and he'll be more than happy to send you any information you want. None of it's proprietary. We'll send. He can send you whatever information that you need, and or arrange a time where you can come up and take a look at the command lab. So, with that, again, thanks for coming on the show. I'll give you the last parting words.
No, thank you very much, man. I think this is awesome, right? Your messages. You were joking about me not listening to Dr. Griffin, but I have listened to some of your shows. Your messaging is awesome. Let's continue to make the fire department great, right, across our country, because we owe it to our people, and we owe it to the people we serve.
Couldn't have said it any better. Thanks a lot. Be safe out there, and if people need to get a hold of you, I'll have that link in there. Have a good day.
You too, man. Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening to this month's Side Alpha Leadership. You can reach us on the web at www.sidealphaleadership.com. We're on social media, on Instagram at Side Alpha Leadership, on Twitter at Leadership Side, and on Facebook for Side Alpha Leadership.